Did you know that Americans are constantly using idioms in both a work and business setting? Today, I will go through 5 idioms that Americans use very frequently. I will show you the exact meanings of these idioms, how Americans use them at work, and how you can use them naturally in meetings and professional conversations. At the end of each idiom, we'll work on your pronunciation as well. Let's look at the first one. Have you ever made a mistake at work and immediately thought, uh-oh, this is bad? Maybe you missed an important deadline. You upset a client. You ignored your manager's instructions. Or you made the same mistake again. Now your boss is frustrated and your job suddenly feels like it may be in trouble. In American English, we say you're on thin ice. What does on thin ice mean? On thin ice means you are in a risky or dangerous situation, someone is upset with you, or one more mistake could cause serious problems. In business English, this often means your boss is unhappy with you, your position is unstable, or you are close to getting into trouble. So why do we have this expression? I want you to imagine standing on a frozen lake. If the ice is very thin, it could crack at any moment. You could fall through. That's the idea behind this idiom. When Americans say you're on thin ice, they mean be careful, you're in a dangerous situation. Let's look at some real workplace situations of how we would use this idiom. Imagine an employee misses one deadline, then another. Now the manager is frustrated. During a meeting, the boss says, "You're on thin ice right now. We need to see improvement immediately." This means the employee's job could be in danger. Now picture an employee who sends an angry email to a client. The client receives the email and goes and complains to management. Later, a coworker quietly says, "After that email, he's definitely on thin ice." This means management is upset and he could face consequences. Now, here's a situation that I used to see happen very frequently when I used to work in sales. I want you to picture a salesperson who loses a major client because they forgot to follow up. The company now loses thousands of dollars. Leadership is unhappy. An employee might say, "She's on thin ice after losing that account." This means her position at the company is now at risk. Now picture an employee who keeps arriving late. First it's Monday, then it's Wednesday, and finally Friday. The manager already warned them twice. A coworker says, "He's on thin ice if he keeps showing up late." This means if the employee shows up one more time late, there could be serious consequences. Now imagine an employee who breaks company rules. This employee ignores company policy several times. Now HR becomes involved. The manager says, "You're already on thin ice. Don't let this happen again." This means the employee is very close to serious disciplinary action. Now there are 3 mistakes that I want you to avoid. The first one is using it for positive situations. On thin ice is always negative. Remember, it describes risk, trouble, or danger. Now, the second mistake is using the wrong preposition. We wouldn't say in thin ice. We have to say on thin ice. And think of it this way. If you have ice, if you have thin ice, like a frozen lake, you would stand on the ice. So remember it that way. Now, the third mistake is using it for small, harmless mistakes. This idiom is stronger than minor problems, and it suggests serious consequences are possible. Now, let's work on your pronunciation. Repeat after me. He's on thin ice. He's on thin ice. He's on thin ice. Have you ever been working on something important? A client deal, a deadline, a presentation, and suddenly time is almost gone. The pressure is high and you're still not finished. In business English, we say, we're down to the wire. But what does that really mean in a professional setting? Down to the wire means you are at the last possible moment, a deadline is very close, and there is almost no time left. In business situations, it usually means a project, deal, or task is about to reach its deadline, and things are still being completed. It often implies pressure, urgency, or high stakes. In a business context, when someone says, we're down to the wire, they mean we have very little time left and we must finish now. Let's look at some real workplace examples of how professionals actually use this idiom. Let's imagine that you're working on a team project. Someone on the team might say, we're down to the wire on this project. Let's finalize everything today. What this means is that the deadline is very close and the team must finish immediately. Now let's picture that you have a proposal to prepare for a client. You might say to a coworker, we're down to the wire with this client proposal. This means you're almost out of time to submit it. Now imagine that you were working on a business deal. You might say, the negotiations went down to the wire. This means the deal was finalized at the last moment. Now let's picture that you're going to send an email to your team because you're approaching a deadline. You could say, hi team, we're down to the wire on this deliverable. Please send your updates by 3 p.m. This is very natural in professional communication. Let's say that you're having a sales meeting at work and your manager says, we're down to the wire. What's the status of the final numbers? This means time is almost up and results are needed now. Now, there are 3 mistakes that I want you to avoid. First, do not use this idiom for relaxed situations. This idiom always means time is almost finished. The second mistake is using the wrong structure, like saying, we're down the wire. You always have to say, down to the wire. The third mistake is overusing this idiom in formal writing. In very formal documents, you want to avoid it. Instead, you can say, we are approaching the deadline. But in meetings, emails, and conversations, it sounds natural and professional. Now, let's work on your pronunciation. Repeat after me. We're down to the wire. We're down to the wire. We're down to the wire. Have you ever started a new job and felt completely lost? Too many emails, new software, new coworkers, new rules, new responsibilities. Maybe everyone around you seems to know exactly what they're doing, but you're still trying to understand how everything works. In American English, we say, I'm still learning the ropes. Well, what does that really mean in business English? Learn the ropes means to learn how a job, business, or system works, to understand the basic procedures, or to become familiar with responsibilities and routines. In business English, this idiom is very common for new employees, new managers, new business owners, new interns, or anyone starting something unfamiliar. Let's look real quickly at the origin of this idiom. This idiom originally came from sailing. On old ships, sailors had to learn which ropes controlled different parts of the boat. There were many ropes, and if you didn't understand them, you could make serious mistakes. So, learning the ropes meant learning how everything worked. Today, Americans use it in business all the time. Let's look at some real workplace situations where we would use this idiom. Let's imagine that you're starting a new job. You just started this new office job. On your very first day, you receive 87 emails. Your manager gives you 4 different passwords. HR asks you to complete forms. Your coworkers use business vocabulary you've never heard of before. During lunch, someone asks, How's the new position going? You answer, good so far. I'm still learning the ropes. This means you're still figuring everything out. Now picture for a moment a company that promotes someone into a management position. Now this person must lead meetings, approve budgets, manage employees, and speak with clients. Another employee says, give her some time. She's still learning the ropes as a manager. This means she's still learning how to handle the role. Now picture for a moment a company that changes to a completely new computer system. Everyone is confused. One employee says, we're all learning the ropes with this new software, meaning everyone is still learning how to use it. Imagine a friend of yours opens their first business. At first, they must learn accounting, marketing, customer service, inventory management, and taxes. You might ask them, how's the business going? They could respond, it's going well, but I'm still learning the ropes. This means they're still learning how to run everything. Here are a couple mistakes to avoid with this idiom. The first thing is that if someone is an expert at something, you are not going to use this. Remember, learning the ropes is usually used for beginners, new employees, or people with little experience in their role. Mistake number 2 to avoid is forgetting the. You can't say, I'm learning ropes. That's incorrect. The correct way to say it is always, I'm learning the ropes. Always include the. Now, let's work on your pronunciation. Repeat after me. I'm still learning the ropes. I'm still learning the ropes. I'm still learning the ropes. Have you ever worked with someone who does more than expected? They stay late to help the team. They give amazing customer service. They pay attention to every small detail, and they always put in extra effort. At work, these people stand out. In American English, we say they go the extra mile. So what does go the extra mile mean? Go the extra mile means to do more than what is required, to make extra effort, or to give additional time, energy, or care. In business English, this idiom is very common when talking about great employees, excellent customer service, strong teamwork, professionalism, or leadership. Let's think about for a moment the idea behind the idiom. Imagine walking 1 mile. That's the minimum expectation. But then someone continues walking even farther. That's going the extra mile. In business, it means doing more than people expect. Now let's look at some real examples of how this idiom is used in work and business situations. Let's picture this customer service example. Imagine a customer that has a problem with an order. Most employees might simply answer the question, but one employee calls the customer personally, fixes the issue quickly, follows up the next day, and offers additional help. The manager says she really went the extra mile for that customer. This means she gave exceptional effort and service. Now let's imagine this team project at work. A team is preparing an important presentation for a client. One employee, however, stays late, improves the slides, double checks the numbers, helps coworkers prepare. After the meeting, the boss says, "Thanks for going the extra mile on this project." This means the employee did more than expected. Now let's picture this situation of you helping a coworker at work. Imagine your coworker is overwhelmed with work. Even though it's not your responsibility, you help them finish before the deadline. Later they say, "Thanks for going the extra mile." This means you made extra effort to help. This idiom is also used very frequently to sound professional when you're in a job interview. Imagine you're in an interview, and during the interview, a manager asks, "Why should we hire you?" A strong answer could be, "I always go the extra mile to help clients and support my team. This sounds very natural and professional in American business. Imagine now a restaurant that you go to frequently. Maybe it's a place where the owner comes out, personally greets you, remembers your name, remembers the dishes that you like to eat and how you like them prepared. You could say, this restaurant really goes the extra mile. This means the business gives exceptional service. Now, there are a couple mistakes that I really want you to avoid. Do not use this idiom for normal effort. This idiom suggests more than normal effort or doing something more than expected. The next mistake to avoid is to leave out one of the words in this fixed structure. Remember, this idiom has to be go the extra mile. You can't leave any words out or change them. Now, let's work on your pronunciation. Repeat after me. Go the extra mile. Go the extra mile. Go the extra mile. Have you ever worked with someone who makes all the decisions? The manager decides the budget. The CEO approves the strategy. The business owner controls the company. And everyone waits for their final decision. At work, we often say, they call the shots. But what does that really mean in business English? Call the shots means to make the important decisions, to be in control, or to have authority or power. In business English, this idiom is very common when talking about managers, CEOs, business owners, team leaders, and decision makers. So where does this idiom come from? This expression originally came from sports and shooting competitions. The person calling the shots decided what would happen, what actions people would take, or where shots would be aimed. Today, Americans use it to describe the person in charge. Let's look at how professionals actually use this idiom. Let's imagine a company is deciding whether to expand internationally. The managers discuss ideas, but the CEO makes the final decision. Employees say, at the end of the day, the CEO calls the shots. This means the CEO has the final authority. Let's picture now a team that is working on a project. It's getting very complicated and they want to change the deadline. But first, they must speak with the department manager. One employee says, talk to Sarah. She calls the shots in this department. Meaning, Sarah is the decision maker. Imagine for a moment a small business owner. The small business owner personally approves hiring, budgets, marketing, and major purchases. Employees say the owner likes to call the shots personally. This means the owner prefers to stay in control of decisions. Let's imagine a company is negotiating with an important client. One employee says, let's wait until their director joins the meeting. He calls the shots. This means the director has the authority to make decisions. Now picture a team project where one manager controls priorities, scheduling, and final approvals. A coworker says she's definitely calling the shots on this project. This means she is leading and making the important decisions. So a couple mistakes to avoid would be, first, using it for people without authority. You would never say the intern calls the shots. This is usually incorrect. This idiom is typically for leaders, managers, or decision makers. The second mistake is confusing it with giving advice. Calling the shots is stronger than giving suggestions. It means having real authority and control. Now, the third mistake is forgetting the plural. We wouldn't want to say call the shot, which would be incorrect. We're going to say call the shots. It's always plural. Now, let's work on your pronunciation. Repeat after me. He calls the shots. He calls the shots. He calls the shots. Now, for those of you that want to improve your business English even further, make sure to remember we just watched part 3, but there's also a part 1 and a part 2. Make sure to click here.